ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। अष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्ति भावति नैष्टिकी। Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 8, text number, attaining the Supreme, text number 5. Antakale cha mam eva antakale cha mameva maran muktva kalevaram maran muktva kalevaram प्रयाति सह मद्भावम। यह प्रयाति समद्भावम याति न अस्ति अत्र संशयः। याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः। अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् भुक्त्वा कलेवरम्। यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः। अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् भुक्त्वा कलेवरम्। यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः। अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् भुक्त्वा कलेवरम्। यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः।
अंतकाले च मामेव
स्मरन् भुक्त्वा कलेवरम्। यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः।
अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् भुक्त्वा कलेवरम्। समद्भावम्
यः प्रयाति समद्भावम्
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः।
अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् भुक्त्वा कलेवरम्।
यः प्रयाति समद्भावम्
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः।
अंतकाले च मामेव
स्मरन् भुक्त्वा कलेवरम्। यः प्रयाति समद्भावम्
संशयः
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः
अंतकाले च मामेव
अंतकाले च मामेव
कलेव
स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावम्
नास्ति अत्र संशयः
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः
अंतकाले च मामेव
अंतकाले च मामेव
उक्त्वा कलेवरम्
स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावम्
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः
अंतकाले च मामेव
अंतकाले च मामेव
कलेवरम्
स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावम्
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः
याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्ति अत्र संशयः. What do we mean? Antakale, at the end of life. Cha, also. Mam, unto me. Eva, certainly. Smaran, remembering. Muktva, putting. Kalevaram, the body. Yaha, he who. Prayati, goes. Saha, he. Madbhavam, my nature. Yati, achieves. Na, asti, there is. Atra, here. Samshayaha, doubt. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Translation. And whoever at the time of death puts his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Translation with repetition. And whoever at the time of death puts his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Prabhupada. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental abode of the Supreme Lord. The word Smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. To remember Krishna, one should chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, incessantly, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, being more tolerant than the tree, humbler than the grass, and offering all respect to others without requiring respect in return. In such a way, one will be able to depart from the body successfully, remembering Krishna, and so attain the supreme goal. Presence in Transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prasharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshakarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are discussing the fifth verse of 8th chapter, attending the Supreme. So actually starting this verse, the Lord is explaining Arjuna how one attains the Supreme abode, the Supreme state. And in this verse, the Lord is explaining in return to the question that was asked by Arjuna as what happens to a devotee who is, and how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So one who has engaged in devotional service, how will they be able to know you at the time of death? And the Lord is explaining here. So the verse, that is second verse, Arjuna uses a specific word called Prayanakali. So Prabhupada translates at the time of death, Prayanakali. And here, the similar word that is used is called Antakale, at the end of life. At the time of death, at the end of life, so both are synonymous. So at the time of death, or at the end of life, what is that one needs to do? And what that and why that is so significant is being explained here. So here it said, Antakale cha mam eva. So eva, certainly, Lord is assuring. So one important aspect that Lord's statements are categorical. They are always true. And sometimes Lord also explains that by emphasizing, certainly, simply by remembering me, Smaran. So remembering the Lord. So Mam Smaran. So if one remembers the Lord, Muktva Kalevara, while quitting the body. At the time of death, if one is able to remember the Lord and is quitting the body, then Yaha Prayati Samadbhavam. So Prayati means he achieves, or he goes. Prayati means he goes. And where does he go? He goes actually to the Supreme Lord, or his abode. And how does that happen? Because he attains his nature, the nature of the Supreme Lord, so Madbhavam. So what is Lord's nature? So Lord is Satchitananda Vigraha. It's all spiritual. So he's full of eternity, full of knowledge, and full of bliss, and he has got a form, and that is all spiritual. And when living entity quits his body in Krishna consciousness, remembering the Lord, then he also acquires the spiritual nature. And because he attains the spiritual nature, he is qualified to go to the supreme abode or the spiritual abode. And Lord is further emphasizing by saying, Yati nasti atra samshayaha, and there is no doubt about this. So if one simply remembers the Lord and quits his body, he immediately achieves the supreme abode, the highest perfection of life. And Prabhupada begins the translation by stating, and whoever, this is very important principle. So whoever, so it does not matter where is that person born, where is he coming from, what is his background, what did he do behind all those years he has got, all the previous lives that he has got. But at the point of death, what is he doing is so central. In Prabhupada often used to quote a Bengali quotation, which also says that the real test of whatever you have done is at the point of death. So the test will be at the time of death. So whether you will pass or you will fail, one cannot understand or one cannot know until the point of death, because that is the point of examination. So if you do well, you pass the examination. If you don't do, fail the examination. So here the Lord is suggesting, is guiding, is instructing Arjuna as what is the way to pass that final test. Because whether one is a scholar, whether one is a fool, does not matter. Whether one is rich or poor, it does not matter. Whoever it be, death has to come. There's no one can escape from the clutches of death. The influence of death is upon everyone. Every living entity who has taken birth in this material world cannot escape this factor of death. But we are all unaware of the factor of death. And therefore, we do not even know what needs to be done when actually the death comes. But it is said in various scriptures that the time of death is so important that it decides our next life. Where do we go next? Do we become cats and dogs? Do we become human beings again? Or do we become some demigods? Or do we transcend this material world? It all depends upon this final examination that we take at the end of the life. And therefore, the Lord is instructing here that if one remembers me alone, then at once attains my nature. So this is the simple instruction, just remember me alone. But usually what happens at the point of death, it is very vividly described in different parts of Srimad Bhagavatam as how the living entity undergoes various kinds of suffering at the point of death. So at the time of death, there is an imbalance of bile, mucus, air, and therefore the living entity is in immense pain. His bodily functions are not normal. And sometimes there can be mental derangement. He may not remember anything. He may not be able to do things properly. He may be in extreme pain. And therefore, it becomes very difficult for a living entity to actually ascertain what is that he is going to do at the point of death. Because things are sometimes beyond his control. He's not sure what is happening to his body, and so on and so forth. So this is one because of that, what is happening inside his body, that he is unable to pay attention as to what to do. But there is another aspect of thing that is also going on at the time of death. That is, all those activities that he has done in the past, actually he starts remembering some of them. He starts remembering, as Prabhupada quotes various stories and examples to illustrate this point, as how someone thinks and what is going to happen to my family members. And therefore, they immediately call, my dear son, please come. My dear wife, please come. All of you, please assemble here. And then the father who's dying in the bed, he would say, can you please take care of the mother? Can you please take care of the other family members? Can you please take care of the business? Can you please fulfill my desire? I thought I will do this. In this way, the living entity, all those things that the living entity thought he will do, is unable to do. Now he is hoping, can that be done some other way? Is there some other means by which green or blue cable? So the living entity at the point of death, one is the suffering that is undergoing at that point of time is affecting him. The other things are the past activities that he has done, the past desires that he has developed, and past attachments that he has developed. Now, those things are also going on in his mind. And because of this, he becomes implicated in thinking how can he and so the living entity, thinking of all the past attachments and his desires which are unfulfilled, the living entity at the point of death is hoping, can somewhere or other I can still fulfill that. Not directly myself, can my son, can my daughter, can my family members, someone else do that for me. So he's attached to those things. Sometimes the husband is attached to wife, and sometimes the wife is attached to husband, and so on and so forth. So in this way, one is attached to various things at the point of death. Now, similarly, it is also possible that the living entity who has led his life full of sense gratification, who so the living entity is undergoing extreme pain and is thinking about the different attachments and hoping, can I still fulfill those desires in some way or other? And these attachments one carries on, and sometimes too much attached to wife, too much the wife is attached to the husband. In this way, usually people leave their body. However, the Vedic civilization is very different. Actually, the Vedic civilization prepares one for death. The modern civilization, there's no idea of what is death and how one should prepare for death. There's no preparation for death. There are many books that are written by Western scholars, philosophers, and death. And there is one interesting book which has become very popular recently. Is a book written by a Harvard Medical School professor. So he talks about how in the modern age people are dying. It's a very interesting book actually. Actually, it is worth reading that because it talks about how the suffering of death has actually increased so much more because of the technology. Because of living, being inside the hospital, the living entity is very much tormented by the various equipments which are present. And every doctor comes and these days says, there is a new treatment for cancer. Can I do a test run on you? And they are not sure. They will say 50% guarantee, 60% failure, please sign here. What can the person who is going to die? He does not know what to do. And they have to sign somewhere or other. The insurance people will say, we'll take care of the insurance this much, please go ahead. Or someone becomes too old in this country, there is no hope for them. Children don't take care of them. And he was telling how sometimes, because they cannot, in this country, there is a rule that if you're not able to drive properly, if you're not able to take care of yourself, you have to be always under the guidance of someone. And now the children are not interested in them. They have to put them in the old age homes because there has to be a caretaker for them. They cannot do things alone. There has to be a caretaker compulsory. And they have to be put in old age homes. And there are all old people. They do not know what to do. Prabhupada in one of the place gives an example of mental asylum, where everyone is mad and running after each other. And even if a doctor is going there, even giving back the injection to the doctor. So that is the condition. And there is no hope. And everyone is, the end days is so horrible. And the hospitals are making huge money by putting these people in old age homes or different so-called care centers, because by that they make money. So even if one does not want to go to these places, if there is no one to take care, they are forced to be kept there. And sometimes it happens that only two old people are staying in the house, the husband and the wife. And they don't know. The doctors will keep calling and say, please come to the old age home. Please come to this care center. We'll put you here. We'll take money from the insurance company and you stay here. And whatever, like a dog, you give them whatever is possible that you can give. So there is nothing that you can take out of your choice. So whatever they give you, you take that. And it is so horrible. Actually, this world is painted so nicely, especially in the Western world, that we actually do not know what is happening behind. It's a terrible business that is run by these people. That's a very interesting book. Actually, he got so many awards because of writing that book, and he's also got an opportunity to work with the US government. Although they don't want to solve the problem, but it's a well-written book which is talking about the problem. And it is very, very pathetic condition. The living entity dying in hospitals has increased so much. Earlier, there was no idea, there was no conception that someone will die in hospital. Now it has become a common trend that somewhere or other they will take you to the hospital towards the end, because at the best time they can make money. The insurance people, everyone feels, there is an opportunity here. Doctors feel there is an opportunity, put him here. Whatever happens, happens. Let me test run. So there was one patient who was suffering from cancer, and these people came and said, we are going to try a new variety of therapy. And that lady, she could not say anything. She said, will I be able to at least see my grandchildren after this? They told, most likely yes, but we cannot guarantee anything. And they do it, and then she immediately dies. And then this doctor says, there are so many cases like this where people were actually supposed to live longer if they lived outside than the hospital. And other places he says that when these people are brought into these old age centers or different centers, they become so distressed, hopeless. They think, what is this? Better to die than living here. And he says that they would have been happier, even though they may be having a disease, but if they were actually living with their loved ones, or if they were doing something that they like, they would have at least had a better life. So the age is progressing in such a way that the extent of the cruelty in which circumstances in which one is dying is also extremely high. Everyone is thinking, how can I exploit a person even at the point of death? And he's saying how doctors also make them as some lab instruments. And this is he gives various case studies of how this is happening all over the US, and this is spreading because of the hospitalization technology, so-called technology, in the hope that there is some chance that he will live or she will live. Just some random hope, but actually there is no real hope. And there is no time for the living entity to actually prepare for the death. They put into such terrible conditions and uncertainty that the living entity undergoes even more suffering. So the time of death is even earlier, at least he would die in front of his family members. That is at least maybe slightly better than the person dying of full of uncertainty, full of fear and anxiety, even more. It is becoming more and more terrible. So in this state of condition, what would one remember? Where is the hope of remembering about the Supreme Lord, remembering even something higher? It's very, very difficult. And actually, it is said that earlier, just in the last 30 years or so, the number of people who actually die in hospital has tremendously increased. And they die actually when there is no one around them. And so on and so forth. But in any case, the condition of dying is something not that is easy. And as it is said, Smashana Vairagya, when we hear about death or when we maybe read this book, we might feel, oh, there is so much suffering, but then again, the tendency is that we become forgetful of this. So the problem of death does not go away just because we forget, but neither we become so alert to solve the problem. But Prabhupada very beautifully explains in the very beginning of Bhagavad that in this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Now, this is very important. Now, on the one side, there is death that's happening, and there is Krishna consciousness movement. So, or Krishna consciousness. So, actually, Prabhupada, in various places, always tried to present how important is this Krishna consciousness movement and why this is so important. And this is one of the reasons why Srila Prabhupada used to travel and meet many, many philosophers, doctors, scientists, scholars of different kinds, politicians, state representatives. He used to go and meet them because he wanted them to know that this Krishna consciousness movement is so important. It is so important, not only from one perspective, but Srila Prabhupada presented it from multiple perspectives. Be it a crime, a social dysfunction in the society, or a political complexity in the world, or peace and prosperity problem in the world, or it could be about any of the issues that the modern world or society is facing. Prabhupada would try to bring them to understand how Krishna consciousness can actually solve these problems. And therefore, Prabhupada very much appreciated when he had the opportunity to meet the respectable men, so-called respectable men of the society, and he always wanted them to know the importance of this Krishna consciousness movement. Because Prabhupada knew that this Krishna consciousness movement is the only solution by which one can escape death. There is no other way. So this is on one side, this Krishna consciousness movement can prevent one from the cycle of birth and death altogether, but also it can create peaceful condition for living for people to come to that state of how they can overcome death. So one is those people who are already willing to take to this process directly, and second is to even those people who are not yet there, but to create circumstances so that they make positive step forward and come to a platform where they can take to this Krishna consciousness. And it is in this regard, Srila Prabhupada also talks about Varnashrama system. Actually, Prabhupada wanted to create this Varnashrama system because there are many people who will not be in a position to directly take to this Krishna consciousness. They need a supporting platform where they can still perform their naturally inclined activities and yet make advancement in Krishna consciousness. And as so there was a discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Raya. So Ramananda Raya gives various answers. So actually, Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Raya to explain what is the highest perfection and so on and so forth. Many questions, and one after other, what is the highest goal of life, and so on and so forth. And then Ramananda Raya keeps explaining. And every time in the beginning, Ramananda Raya is explaining, he says, this is iha bahya, this is external, this is not important. That means this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was only concerned about the spiritual platform. He was only instructing on the spiritual platform, how to come to that spiritual platform directly, and the significance of chanting and so on and so forth. And therefore, he considered everything else as external. But Srila Prabhupada says that that is possible only for few people. And therefore, we also follow the instructions that is given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So in Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says that even if a Shudra, if he is doing his job very nicely, he can attain perfection. So in that sense, Prabhupada wanted to give an opportunity for people who are not even, who cannot directly take the Krishna consciousness, but engage in the prescribed duties honestly and with the Lord in the center. The energy, the result of that the task is doubted in the service of the Lord. So this Krishna consciousness moment is also a moment of paropakar. Why this Krishna consciousness moment is important? One, it can solve the problems of death, it can stop the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. It can actually create good conditions, and it is actually a real welfare activity for everyone. And Prabhupada, especially when he went to India, he often stressed in all the places, he said, you should give back, you should take to this Janma Sarthak Kari Karo Paropakar. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. You should not be selfish. You should be willing to do the welfare for others. Don't be self-centered. So Srila Prabhupada always emphasized this point, that this Krishna consciousness movement is the one that is really meaning the well-being of the people. And if you do not become self-centered, and if you are willing to distribute what is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kyare Dekho Tare Kaho Krishna Upadesh, simply repeat what is being told by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and simply by doing that, you can actually do the real welfare activity. And Srila Prabhupada was always concerned as how the living entity is undergoing so much of suffering because of the bodily concept of life. Because one is under illusion, Maya, one cannot overcome the threefold miseries. But as soon as one receives transcendental knowledge, as soon as one takes this path of spiritual life, even even if one takes a little amount of progress in spiritual life, one can be saved from greatest dangers and fear. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada constantly traveled, wrote all these books, built various temples, created Sankirtana parties, went on giving lectures every time, so that one can understand this transcendental knowledge by which one can actually be freed from illusion and do real welfare for one's own self. So therefore, there are so many reasons why this Krishna consciousness movement is important. And basically, Krishna consciousness movement is nothing but a means of providing how for people to become Krishna conscious. And the most fundamental of all of that importance is that one actually attains the highest perfection and happiness. In simple terms, one can actually find perfection only by this method. One can actually find complete happiness only by this method. And therefore, it is so important. And therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is so important. And Prabhupada always appreciated his disciples whenever they said, we appreciate Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada was very happy. Now you understood, please push on this movement to your best of ability, depending upon Krishna. So this Krishna consciousness movement is very, very important in this human society, because today's society is is so degraded. There's no value system, there's no culture, there's no education. The Krishna conscious movement is the one that is giving education as how your next life will not get degraded to cats and dogs, rather you actually elevate your standard of life and actually go back to home together. And therefore, the significance of Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada says, is in all respects, in all spheres, Krishna consciousness can be applied. And Prabhupada said, be it philosophy of life, be it developing good character, be it learning good aesthetics, musical, and the highest thing, spiritual enlightenment. All these aspects are coming from Krishna consciousness and the source for all this. And therefore, Prabhupada repeatedly encouraged devotees to understand his books and think from different angles and apply them in practice so that people can understand, appreciate the importance of this movement and follow these principles of Krishna consciousness. So that is a very important point to note, that Krishna consciousness movement is very important, and this verse is actually signifying, because the end culmination of Krishna consciousness movement is to remember Krishna always, and by remembering Krishna always at the time of death, we actually transcend this material world and go back to the spiritual world. And therefore, this verse, Prabhupada says, is emphasizing or stressing the importance of Krishna consciousness. Now, here, the Lord is saying that simply by remembering Him, one is at once transferred to the transcendental abode. Now, there are even the other school of transcendentalists, the Mayavadi school of transcendentalists, Sripad Shankaracharya. Even he says, Nahi nahi rakshati. When the time of death, learning some grammar or some other forms of knowledge will not save one from death or from this repetition of cycle of birth and death, but only by taking shelter of the Lord. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. So one may be expert, scholar in language, so many things, but if one does not chant the name of the Lord Govinda, one does not sing the glories of Lord Govinda, then all other things are of no value, which are futile. And therefore, the great Alvar, Kulshekar Alvar, and Prabhupada used to sing this song. Actually, this is a verse from Mukunda Malasu Stotra, where Prabhupada used to always sing this Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja. So basically, in that there is one important word called Prayana Kale. So actually, Prabhupada talks about that the Prayana Kale or Anta Kale, as we see in the words here. Basically, there's a metaphor that is used in this verse, where Kulishekar Alvar says that the swan of my mind be fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord, or the lotus step. So basically, just like a swan is actually fixes at the lotus stem, it puts its head into the lotus stem. Similarly, Kulishekar Alvar says that he wants his mind to be actually fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna, and that should happen right now, because I'm in a healthy state. Now I may have the ability to remember the Lord, but when at the time of death, my body is imbalanced and struggling and undergoing a lot of turbulence because of imbalance of bile, mucus, and air. Therefore, I may not be able to remember. Therefore, better I die now and remember the Lord. So he says, my dear Lord, may I die immediately now that I am healthy, so that the swan of my mind may enter into the stem of thy lotus feet. So this metaphor is used because the swan often takes pleasure in entering the stem of the lotus flower. Similarly, the mind of a pure devotee is drawn to the lotus feet of the Lord. Maharaja Kulashekara fears that at the time of death, his throat will also be choked up, that he will not be able to chant the holy names. So it is better to die immediately. So at the time of death, it is not sure that one can actually be able to speak. And therefore, there is no guarantee that one can chant. And therefore, Kulashekara was saying, I don't know, the bodily functions will be disrupted. My mental function, I do not know how it will be. And therefore, better I die. And therefore, the great acharyas, they all desire that they always remember Krishna. They never forget Krishna. So only one who's actually very, very strong in Krishna consciousness can actually remember Krishna at the time of death. Because one so transcendently fixed that any of the other material inconveniences does not affect one. But otherwise, it actually affects one. And therefore, Prabhupada is stating here that remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. So therefore, Prabhupada, as we'll also see Lord Krishna emphasizing in this aspect of practice. So without practice, it is not possible actually for one to remember Krishna. And then Prabhupada is stating how one can remember Krishna. Because remembering Krishna is not very easy because we are so much engrossed with the world around. We're busy with so many different things that to remember Krishna can be very difficult. And therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is also very important in comparison to all other movements because this movement is also giving the moment, it is also the moment of Sankirtana. Or the moment of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And therefore, this movement is also very important. There are so many other movements, even bona fide religious movements, but because the emphasis is not on chanting the holy names of the Lord, therefore they will dwindle in due course of time. But this Krishna consciousness movement is giving an opportunity for everyone to come together and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And because of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will bestow his mercy. And therefore, in order to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have to follow in his footsteps. And what is the footstep that Srila Prabhupada is referring here? Vinadapi Sunichena, Karorapi Sahishana, Amanina Manavina, Kirtanina Sadhari. So Vinadapi Sunichena. So one has to be humbler than the blade of grass. Just like when it's trample upon the grass just comes back, does not think it is so important. So similarly, one should not think oneself to be something very high. One should think oneself to be insignificant. And then one has to be more tolerant than the tree. Because this material world, as I was describing earlier, Srila Prabhupada says, that it's a place of mental asylum, where people are all running, hitting each other, fighting each other, and they're even hitting the doctor. So we cannot expect that there will be all good people, everyone will be peaceful, everyone will be cultured, everyone will be sober. No, there will be friction, there will be disturbances, there will be different kinds of inconveniences that can come about. But tolerance is so important. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj also says that in a matha, one of the important qualities for people living in matha is tolerate. Because there will be things that we may not like, oh, this devotee must be like this, or this devotee must do these things. But we do not know that even other devotees are tolerating us. And therefore, we must also recognize that we have to be tolerant. And actually, these qualities, when one develops, and also by chanting, also one develops, but one also must make an effort. And that is very pleasing to Mahaprabhu. So anyone who chants in this mood, this attitude of being insignificant and being tolerant and being respectful to everyone, in that mood, one can actually chant very easily. And one can chant continuously. Kirtaniya Sadahari. If one is not humble, one is not tolerant, if one is not giving respect to everyone, but expecting respect, then it becomes difficult because these things impede one from chanting the holy name of the Lord incessantly. And therefore, we actually have to learn to follow in the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, as Bhadriyan Prabhu was also explaining, Mahaprabhu, how did he preach to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? And similarly, there's another incident of Mahaprabhu preaching to Prakashananda Saraswati in Varnas. So there, Mahaprabhu, so in the discussion, Prakashananda Saraswati, he's also a sannyasi, he's thinking, Mahaprabhu, what is this? You're dancing, chanting, you're going with so many people like who look like fanatics, who look like sentimentalists. But you're meant to be a great sannyasi. You're meant to be a sannyasi. A sannyasi must meditate and read Vedanta. Why are you doing all these things? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately says, oh, my spiritual master said, I'm a fool, number one. And he said, Vedanta is not for you. He said, the only thing that you're supposed to do is to chant Hare Krishna incessantly. And because he told me, I'm just doing that. So Mahaprabhu demonstrates the significance of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra and how it is to be chanted. And Mahaprabhu is so special because Mahaprabhu is personally demonstrating how to practice devotional life. Very, very special, because otherwise we do not know. We do not have an example to follow. We do not know how to see. And therefore the Acharyas and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are so important, because without example, we will not ever be able to understand what is this principle of humility, what is this principle of tolerance, what is this principle of respect. We will not be able to understand. How Mahaprabhu was so humble. The humility of Mahaprabhu touched Prakashananda Saraswati and all others. They were all surprised. Oh, Mahaprabhu, you're glowing like Narayana, but you are sitting in the place where people wash their hands and feet. Oh, why are you sitting like this? No, please. Mahaprabhu says, no. I thought I'm not so great. You are all so elevated people. So I'm just like, no. You're glowing like Narayana. Why are you here? And even though they were all making different comments about Mahaprabhu's Sankirtana, Mahaprabhu, who was staying with Chandrasekhara and Tapan Mishra, they were very agitated. They were disturbed. They were all criticizing Mahaprabhu. How can they do that? They were extremely unable to bear that. But Mahaprabhu was very, very tolerant. He said, okay, don't worry. I'll go to Vrindavan and I'll come back, then I will see them. And Mahaprabhu was giving respect to all of them. Mahaprabhu was giving respect to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Utmost respect. And Mahaprabhu is personally demonstrating how we should follow, how we should take the instruction of the spiritual master, how we should be humble, tolerant, and respectful. And it is in that mood, in that attitude, one can continuously chant. And Prabhupada also states that sometimes it may not be possible for one to chant because the throat is choked and so on and so forth. But the Lord is present in our heart. He remembers, oh, he has worked so hard for me. He has done devotional service. The spiritual master and the Lord, they will remember. And there are many, many pastimes where disciples of Prabhupada share. I don't remember the exact details of this pastime. I remember reading it long back. I couldn't find it before I came here. But there was this devotee who was serving Srila Prabhupada for some good amount of time. And then somehow or the other, he gets carried away and goes away from the temple and starts doing many different things. But at the end of his life, I don't remember the entire incident here, but at the end of his life, he says, Prabhupada. And the other devotee who were watching, they were saying that, oh, how Prabhupada is so merciful that actually Prabhupada is taking it back. So Uh, in any case, actually, one seriously serves the spiritual master and Mahaprabhu by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, by rendering menial service, any service that comes to one, if one sincerely makes one's best effort, depending upon Krishna and spiritual master, and following these simple steps of being tolerant, humble, respectful to everyone. And in this way, if one can go on chanting, then actually by the mercy of the spiritual master and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, one will be delivered for sure. And therefore, this moment is very, very special. Very special. That this human life is the only loophole by which one can come out, and yet it is so difficult to find out where is that entry point of the loophole, and how does one actually exit that orbit of cycle. And we are so fortunate to have Sri Prabhupada and Sri Bhagavad by rendering sincere service and chanting Hare Krishna. Actually, one can perfect one's life in this lifetime itself. We'll stop here and see if there are any questions or comments.
Krishna. In the synonyms, the word eva is translated as certainly.
Mhm.
But in the translation, is that the word which is translated as alone? Me alone. That's what is there in the translation. So
it could also mean at once. So that also in some sense means certain. And alone also can mean certain. So I think in both ways it looks like that word. Because there's no word which is at once also. Hey Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. So I remember watching a video of Prabhupada when he was nearing death. And he was surrounded by devotees. He was in the Holy Land. They were chanting incessantly, very loudly. It was almost as if it was a big celebration. And I'm wondering, aside from, I'm wondering, should we plan for our death to be done in a similar way? Because when you talk about the difficulties of the body and all these other variables, it seems it seems impossible for me to imagine that I personally would be able to remember Krishna unless I was in a situation like that where I'm surrounded by devotees chanting around me, reading scripture, having pictures of Krishna around. I don't see how it could be possible otherwise. So should we plan for that specific way of living the body? So one can desire for sure, and one can live the body in a way where one is surrounded by devotees and with harm. At the same time, one must be purely dependent upon the mercy of Guru Krishna. Because at the end, actually, without the mercy, we will not be controlled. But if we render service, they will make sure the best way we live the body. Just like there was a recently in one of the lecture where Madhupani Prabhu was sharing about a devotee who travels back to his home after 3 years, and he just goes at the right time, just before his father is about to pass away. He gives him tulsi leaf from the lotus feet of the Lord. He puts Kanti Mala and he puts Prabhupada chanting, and he starts chanting because his father is not in the condition to chant, but he is chanting in his ears, and then immediately he passes away. Now here, the Lord has made the arrangement for that living entity to leave the body in a specific. Similarly, there are some other devotees who had to undergo some terrible illness before they leave the body, but because they rendered service by the mercy of the Lord, they were devotees. The living entity cannot do anything at that point of time. What planning will he do? He cannot call anyone. He cannot say, please come here, please go there. 3 people come here, book a cab. No. The Lord has to arrange that the devotee was brought to the temple at the right time. Doctor said we cannot do anything. Then by Krishna's mercy, the devotees could bring that devotee to the temple, and then they do kirtan, and the devotee lives amongst the devotees doing kirtan. So basically, to a certain degree we can, but fundamentally, eventually it's in the hands of Guru and Krishna that if we sincerely render service to them, we do not have to worry about anything that we need. They will provide more than what we need. And even in terms of how we should leave the body, they will provide devotees doing kirtan or different ways. It's how can a devotee from Bangalore temple travel all the way to North India and he plays Prabhupada's kirtans, provides Kantimala at the right time when one is supposed to play? That is only by the arrangement of the Lord. So we have to completely be dependent in all circumstances. We have to prepare. Preparation for death is to do chanting and service. That is our preparation. So if we are doing that, then in the details of where that is going to happen, we may decide, okay, I should maybe pass here and there. But again, we fully dependent upon the mercy of the spiritual master and the Lord. And they will make sure that, and Prabhupada's temples are all Vaikunthas, they're not different in towns. So, and wherever Prabhupada's holy name is also chanted, so they're all towns. So, in that sense, Prabhupada does very much. If there are no questions or comments, we'll stop here. Congratulations, Bhagavad Gita ki, Krishna Prabhupada ki, Thank you.